I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where we stand today, Villaga and Terrible people, and pay respect to the past, present, and emerging custodians. We acknowledge that these lands have been stolen from the traditional and rightful owners. Sovereignty has never been ceded, always was, and always will be Aboriginal land. So, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. This is an activity that ASLA organizes every year. But I am going to, so this afternoon, Oscar and myself are going to be MCs. Oscar a little bit less because he also has to play in 2 different groups. Very busy boy he is. And I didn't want to put more work onto him because otherwise he's my older brother and he can tell me off. So I will leave you with, before that, I just wanted to introduce ourselves. So we are ASLA, Australian Solidarity with Latin America. So I just wanted to introduce ourselves. So I'm Manoli, the secretary. Adela is our coordinator over there. We have Saul as our treasurer. Hi. And we have the committee members who are Ovidio, also known as my father, or my daddy.
No monopoly. No
nepotism at all. And also another committee member is Oscar, my brother. Hey, if anyone else wants to come and take the positions, I'm all for it. And also we have Juanito, who is not here today. And we have been going for many years, ASLA. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Oscar to tell us about the activity today.
Hi everyone. I thought I should write this because it's been an important commemoration. I thought I had to have this in writing, at least a summary of what we are commemorating today. We gather here to commemorate, as we say in Latin America, the other 9/11, where progressives remember Allende's Chile, a tragic chapter in the history of Chile and Latin America. A tragic chapter, but at the end it has given not only the people from Chile but other countries a lot more to think about how to change societies. On September 11, 1973, Salvador Allende's socialist government was toppled by a US-backed military coup led by Augusto Pinochet, barely 3 years after Allende was elected. Chile has been a poster child for how neoliberalism and violence walk hand in hand. Free market economics was forced on the population following the 1973 US-sponsored coup that overthrew Salvador Allende. After winning the 1970 presidential elections in Chile, Salvador Allende worked towards social reforms and justice, nationalizing natural resources, building homes for the poor, and focusing on better access to health and education. Allende fought until the last hours of his life to defend the social gains and constitutional order. On his last speech, just minutes before the military bombed the presidential palace, he gave Chileans one last message of hope. So I didn't want to make a huge speech out of this, as we know why we are here. And pretty much we're just going to proceed with the program from now on.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oscar. So a bit of housekeeping as well. If you need to use the toilets, they are just on my right there. And just be careful with the steps, please. If you want some drinks at any time, we're not going to have an intermission or a break, so make sure that whenever you want to go and have a drink, you're most welcome to get up and go and get something to drink or eat. Yeah, I think at the end of the activity, if people want to have something to eat, just let me know so that we can book maybe a table for some people. Otherwise, you can stay around if you wanted to have something to eat downstairs. I believe the kitchen closes at 9, but believe me, we're not going to go that long, okay? Now, one of our first, in the program, one of our first points is Música Rebelde. I just wanted to introduce a bit, they can introduce themselves as well, but I just wanted to say that Música Rebelde is made up of members who are comrades who have always been committed to working for social justice in many different spheres. Therefore, the name is very appropriate, Música Rebelde. In order to make changes, we have to rebel against the system that oppresses the people and the working class. Many of the songs that Música Rebelde plays and sing is a reflection of this. As such, I just want to say thank you to Música Rebelde for being here, and please welcome Música Rebelde.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to see you, everybody here today. 11th of September for us means a lot. Means sadness, suffering, exile, and everything what is involved when situation like that happens. It's very surprising what's the events that happened in the recent elections in Chile. So it's been a big blow for everyone who believes in social justice and equality. And but that's the way it is. We are part of that percentage of people who still believe in a better world, and we can say that the dream, as Allende said, still exists. And we will continue our journey, fighting for what we believe is right. And we're here for that reason, and we will continue supporting the people who want to change, and not only in Chile but all over the world, for a better world. So we are Música Rebelde. We went into Penny said that, and don't mention that I've been in Chile for 24 years and I just come back, but I will, because she did for 24 years a great job in community development over there, and so we welcome her back to Brisbane. We got Ricardo, who is from El Salvador. And I was his birthday yesterday too, so he's and Jorge, our musical director, friend, comrade, drink mates, and all whatever else is needed. So we like to. Oscar, where's Oscar? Oscar. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I didn't see you. Well, and Oscar, Emilio, Orellana as well. He's been with us since the beginning, and yeah, so welcome him as well. And we're going to play a song that was written by Victor Jara many years ago, and it's called the Right to Live in Peace. And it talks about the right to live in peace. That's the right essential human rights, you know. So, and but it's a different version. This version of that song was rewritten, and when social unrest in Chile make a lot of conscious about the changes that have to be done. So this is it. Remembering Victor Jara and all those victims that they suffered and the revolt, social revolution.
much Música Rebelde. I think very appropriate to start with a song by Victor Jara and with that sort of sentiment of that song as well. Next, we are going to have Penny Glass. We're not going to let her rest. So I want to tell you a bit about Penny. Penny is a compañera that we have known for a few years. I was only a baby when I started getting it.
Only a baby.
So Penny has been part of the solidarity movement for Latin America for many, many years. Penny is a community theatre artist, musician, teacher, researcher and social activist since the 1970s in Australia and in Chile since 1998. During the 80s, Penny was part of the Chile Solidarity Committee in Brisbane. Penny has formed theatre groups with very diverse communities in order to create critical reflection about different social issues. Penny was co-founder of the non-government organization Sustento Colectivo in 2012 in Santiago, Chile, a social organization that works in organizing urban gardens, autonomous sustainability, as well as organizing theatre in context, in prisons for men and youth justice. In February this year, 2022, Penny returned to Australia after living in Chile for 23 years. And I think there's no more appropriate person to talk to us about the current situation in Chile at the moment, including, as Rodolfo said, the latest blow or defeat that the plebiscite had in Chile to change the constitution. A constitution that was written during the military dictatorship of Pinochet. And I know the defeat to change this constitution has left many questions unanswered, but at the same time, it gives us a good opportunity to have an honest and meaningful discussion of the political atmosphere in the country and the amount of work needed by the progressive and left political forces to redirect the social changes required. Allende said in his last speech, the social processes cannot be stopped by any means. The people make their own history, and yes, many times the people will get it wrong, because there are so many other forces at play, forces that have the people in very invisible chains and chained into modern day slavery. However, there is only so much that a people can withstand, and a change is fundamentally essential and inevitable. And before I give this microphone to Penny, I just wanted to say a famous philosopher, we'll see if you know who it is, said, the people will realize that they have nothing to lose but their chain. Let us not lose hope. So, Penny, welcome.
I'm just getting over a cold still, so my water close. There's so much to say about Chile, so much to say about, as we were saying all that and going right back to the coup and before, to understand what's going on in Chile at the moment. I don't want to give a speech really, but sort of open up ideas for reflection and then open up for everyone's reflection about what happened recently in Chile, because I think everybody has a different view and everybody's views are valid in a sense to try and understand this absolute disaster, tragedy I could say, tragedy. But we can see why, and when I think back to the whole thing of the constitution in Chile, I was reminded that during the time that we're in the Chile Solidarity Committee in the 1980s here in Brisbane, we did a study of the Chilean constitution. I remember translating parts of it for a constitutional lawyer here in Brisbane who said, oh, this is the most anti-democratic constitution I have ever read. And that stuck with me for all these years, and when no one talked about the constitution. I mean, it was there, it was just there in the background, stopping every reform possible, because every time the government wanted to change, even if it was just a little bit, they sent it to the Constitutional Court, which said, no, it's against the Constitution. So anytime there was any effort to change it, even if it was tiny, and there were some things that got through, sure, but they were, like they call it in Spanish, parche, like a band-aid, like a band-aid to a dying person. So there was that I was thinking. I was also thinking that there's really a before and after the social upheaval into October 2019. I had the fortune or misfortune to talk on many occasions about Chile but here in Australia or in other parts of the world, and it would always preface everything by saying, this is the most common expression in Chile, es lo que hay. And I would say, es lo que hay, which means, that's just the way it is. So how can it be that that's the most common expression that people use for everything? Oh, that didn't work. Lo que hay. I just lost all my pension. It's lo que hay. The buses just doesn't work anymore. It's lo que hay. So everything it's just the way it is. So I would always talk about this whole concept of it's not complacency, it's like total, like not seeing any hope, not seeing any possibility of any change, and just accepting at the same time as recognizing all the abuses, but accepting that that's just the way it is. And that was like, for all the time I lived in Chile up until October 2019, I was as surprised as many other people with this social upheaval. It was extraordinary, it was chaotic, it was violent at times, and violence from many different places, but it was also that whole es lo que hay disappeared. And that was the most that I felt really sort of reivindicated to have, been working all this time with people who were trying to change things and they said, no, it's so difficult, no one cares, they give a shit, but all of a sudden they gave a shit. People were giving a shit all over the place. And perhaps what you saw on the news was the Plaza Dignidad, which is the main square in Santiago, just invaded with people, a lot of artistic expressions in performances, murals, just walls like for kilometers covered in art and consigna slogans and all sorts of stuff like that. And all sorts of, to the fact that people were having signs that said, there's so much stuff, I don't know what to put on the side. It was an incredible explosion of all this abuse and all this feeling about what people really had been thinking all these years and not wanting to say, or not thinking it was why bother saying. So, and that, not only, yes, I was going to say that not only La Plaza Dignidad was important, but also in each territory around Chile, there began to be formed these territorial assemblies, which I personally, from my point of view, were more important in a sense than what was happening in Plaza Dignidad. This is a personal opinion, because it was thinking long term. It wasn't just thinking confrontation, it wasn't just thinking we want to say what we think. It's actually saying, okay, let's now get together intergenerationally and see what we can do in our territory, in our barrio, in our suburb, in our little area. And that for me was, I think, the most monumental change I saw, and it continues to this day, despite the pandemic. All those assemblies converted into ollas comunes, give you the translation. Common pots, they say, but it's really a sort of a food kitchen, like a food kitchen, solidarity food kitchen. So the organisation of the assemblies, of the territorial assemblies, were the basis of the creation of these communal kitchens that helped people through the pandemic, and then, of course, the uprising also led to the government, the right-wing government of Sebastián Piñera, in a pact across most of the other parties, to propose this idea of rewriting the constitution. And to understand this process, I'd just like to say a couple of things and then maybe open it up to everybody else, was that it was an extraordinarily democratic process. It wasn't written by the government, it was written through a constitutional assembly, which was, in my opinion, the most democratically representative body I've ever seen in Chile. You have everyone from indigenous activists to the far-right Pinochet supporters in the same room. It was equal men and women. 10% of the Constitutional Convention was for indigenous people. And they worked through in 7 different commissions. They worked through a whole range of issues to do with creating a new Magna Carta. There was a lot of conversation, a lot of argument, but they managed to put up this draft constitution, which for a lot of people was extraordinary. That it mentioned all the different, it was based on human rights, it was based on solidarity, and the state guaranteeing social services, which are 3 major things that were missing in the old old constitution and many more other things, but just as a basis. So they were working 24/7. I know this because I know a lot of people who are working in this Constitutional Assembly. There was also a process for people to put up articles. You could put them up on the platform. The Constitutional Convention considered all those articles, tried to include the spirit of them as much as possible. And they also went out and gave a lot of talks everywhere. All, again, supported by these territorial assemblies. And, but nevertheless, it didn't get voted in for a number of reasons, which I hope we can talk about now. But it was surprising for many people because people really felt, and there was this tide of change, so I can put it like that. So they felt a tide of change that the Constitution represented. There's the feelings of the majority of the people, and yet the right wing have control of the media. The right wing did a huge disinformation campaign, and people got confused, and there was, majority of people voted against it. So maybe I could just open it up and we could just talk about what people feel what have they heard as reasons to understand what happened with this rejection of the Chilean Constitution. Yeah, so somebody else.
Okay. Just from here.
Yeah.
Penny, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just from what you said, I was thinking very strongly about the concept of poiesis. I'm not going to translate that concept to English because it's in Latin. And it's basically the core of what we understand as poetry. And it means creation. I think that what happened with the October 18 is that there was a very strong spirit of poiesis taking over the whole country.
Yeah.
People went onto the streets and there was violence too, but basically there was a creation moment.
Yeah.
And we'll see if that will survive because of course the conservative people there don't want anything new. They are good as they are.
That's right.
And the social forces need to be able to break that and do the changes and the creation they want to do.
So you reckon it just didn't go far enough?
Not
Getting to
yet,
all the people.
but we keep going.
Yeah,
Same here.
No, I
Vicky?
Yeah, it seems to me it's kind of similar to what happened with Brexit, that people were really lied to. So I want to know what kind of messages were,
Well, it was brutal disinformation campaign, like totally changing the meaning of the articles in the Constitution. For example, an article that says, in the case of expropriation and the need to expropriate your house, the government will pay compensation. And that became, the government will expropriate your house. Like on that level, brutal, like obvious level, anybody who'd read the Constitution would have understood that it was a lie, but I think most people didn't read it. And that you can understand for many reasons why that is, from the bad education system to someone I saw yesterday on Instagram saying, they're just lazy. So you can understand from a number of different points of view. But that was sort of like really brutal. Like also things like, another one about, the one about the houses was really repeated by a lot of people. What were some of the others?
I think taking jobs with Chile becoming a Venezuela,
Yeah.
like Cuba.
yeah.
That was a huge thing,
Yeah,
and because there's a lot of resentment from the population of a lot of Venezuelans in Chile. isn't there?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of discrimination against people who come from those countries.
The other one I just remember is that they were talking about changing the pension system. Our pension system is privatised, virtually all privatised. And so they were talking about doing a solidarity pension system paid by all taxpayers, like our age-old pension. And so what they were in the disinformation camp, they were saying that the government would be taking all your funds, all your super, and to create this new system, which was completely wrong. It wasn't. There was actually an article in the Constitution saying no pension funds
People
will be
got
touched.
scared and didn't understand the idea of solidarity as a strength, where there would be enough for everyone.
Yeah.
I read an opinion of a person who wrote a rechazo, like a very uneducated young guy who said, I don't want to be putting money in a system that then is going to be splitted, repartido, spread all over everyone. I would rather just save money for myself. And that is what they managed the population population to feel. So it's basically they managed to get the people to reject solidarity and sharing and just continue with individualism. And it's neoliberalism.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
The new social pact, the social contract is something that's been really totally whittled away under the neoliberal government. So people have really internalized the whole idea of the individual survival and, otherwise you're weak shit.
That's the spirit of the neoliberalism.
Yeah, that's right.
Individualism.
But I think they also have the tools, because the tools of social media.
Absolutely.
You can see it in countries like El Salvador, where the government, the president actually won just by being so popular on social media.
Yeah.
And the young people, and not even young people,
No.
in many remote areas there are people that live in very, very humble cottages, no electricity, but they do have Wi-Fi and they have social media. So it is a huge, huge part, I think.
I mean, they even got to the point of actually printing out a false version of the new constitution and selling it on the streets.
Yeah.
And Chileans are used to buying, decrees and laws and stuff in little small books out of kiosks in the main center of the city, and so they were doing that as well. It was like totally descarado. They didn't give a shit. They just did whatever they liked.
Shameless.
It's totally irresponsible and illegal, but was very effective, and combined with fear of change.
And also because someone didn't analyze that he's very savvy statistically,
Right.
and he said, look, the Apruebo had even more votes than Boric had. And Boric is the most voted president in the history of the country. But there is a big difference. For 20 years, no votation is being obligatory.
Yeah.
And so the people voting Apruebo was more than the people who voted for Boric. But there is a lot of more people who never voted in 20 years.
Yeah.
And now they voted, and maybe they even rejected the idea that they needed to vote, by law. They didn't like it.
Well, there was another analysis that said that there was a conflation between the approval or non-approval of the Boric government and the constitution. Whereas he said it, I don't know how many times, this is an autonomous process, all votes are valid, just do an informed vote. But most people, because there was a bit of, because it's been a difficult government with Boric, he's got everything against him, and his cabinet, etc. And so people were voting against Boric by voting to reject the constitution and confusing two things that were actually not connected.
They linked the process.
Yeah, they linked. Yeah, exactly. There wasn't enough understanding of that.
Also, we have to make a autocritic,
Yeah, sure.
because
Absolutely.
that the education and promoting the new contribution was not up to standard or something like that to make the normal people or the people who don't understand the law, language or anything, make it simpler to spread around. So that's also affected a lot as well.
So what is the education system like
Ah.
in Chile? It sounds terrible.
It's terrible.
Look, it used to be fantastic.
Yeah.
The education system in Chile was based on the classic French system. And Chile has probably one of the first universities in the whole South America, Universidad de Chile, founded by Andrés Bello, who was a Venezuelan, who had a lot of ties in Europe with the illustration, right? So it's related to the illustration, just like all of the independence wars were related to the European illustration. Now, that,
European illustration.
the illustration, everything
Of
that you
illustration.
The model or something.
The model.
Period.
well, who saw the things that went to the French Revolution. Rousseau, Robespierre, the people who did the French Revolution. That movement was called the Illustration. And the independence of South America and North America, in a way, are related to, because there were thinkers who were jumping the Atlantic Ocean back and forward, and there were associations. Now, that system in the beginning was pretty strong, but the country came from a feudal kind of lord system with people who had huge land hogs, and the level was great. And then when they tried to do public, for a long time was actually a really good quality. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough for everyone in the population. There was still huge differences in the level of, intellect and knowledge in the country. And then on top of it, it came neoliberalism. And so only the people with money has access to a good education. And the public system did not only stay there, but it got defunded, which is what happens with every neoliberal government. They start defunding every public service, and they start giving everything to the privates. And the privates have no interest in the public good. They only want profit for themselves. And that is what is dysfunctional. And in decades of that, we have the current situation. People don't understand what they read.
Yeah. And this privatised system of education is actually based on the tenets of the 1980 Constitution brought in during the dictatorship. It gave the right, it's not the right to education, it's the right, the education is a right and a good, can be privatised. Health is a right and also can be privatised.
The classic education
Pensions are
system
right
in
and can be
Chile.
privatised. So all of that happened in 1980. By 1981 they had private health
That's
funds,
right.
private pension
Gotcha.
funds, and
Really?
education was taken from the central level and given to local councils. So if you live in a local council, a lot of money, great. But if you don't, like the majority of Chileans, it's not. No. So that's the nail in the coffin of the education system.
But that's the American system as
Well,
well.
Yes, it's been copied from the American system, the two-party system too.
That's
Because they used to
like
be
a
many
drugstore.
parties. Now there are two main parties. Everyone else doesn't really count.
Anybody else?
Not only for the American
Yes.
system, it's what's happened in Australia.
Yeah.
Is happening.
Neoliberalism is doing the same thing everywhere.
Yep.
So is it dead, or will they try again?
Well, the moment there's a question about who is going to, because there was a plebiscite to actually work on the Constitution, and that plebiscite won by 80 to 85% of Chileans who voted, which wasn't compulsory, approved the idea of rewriting the Constitution. So they're basically saying we can't ignore that, but how are we going to do it? So now there's a big argument about whether it will be, we're going to let the people in or not, or is it written in the Congress?
Yeah.
So that's the big fight at the moment.
It's also affected by the fact that the existing constitution
Yeah.
dictates how the new constitution will be written. So they may actually say that the Senate will now write the new constitution.
Well, that's right.
They can do say
They can
that
do
by
that.
the old constitution.
But if they do that, people will go back on the streets.
Well, they're already
They
back.
allow that.
We hope so.
They're already back on the streets.
We like that.
Probably also, I think too, that probably many of us know that we have to know that Chile is in Latin America the first country where was launched the idea of neoliberalism
That's
spreading
right.
over
It's the
Latin
model.
America.
Case
The
study.
consequence that we have coming out of Chile is that because it still is strong, the thinking of neoliberalism in everybody. And that happened now, still the people are thinking at the same, if I go to for them, okay, they are going to take, I prefer to do my own money, individualism, and that is neoliberalism, which is, that causes now this first shock for all of us that happened in Chile. But the people, even in Africa, is understanding that have to be more educated. Even in Chile, the
And you
people
know-
need to get more education outside in the
Yeah.
areas, and it doesn't happen because no people have been organized to go and people to teach, to show, to do some workshops about how to work. This is my.
And Chile is not only the laboratory for neoliberalism in South America. Chile was the laboratory of neoliberalism in the whole world.
Yes.
No one else implemented in the way they did in Chile. And the result of the big uprising in 2019 is absolutely beautiful, because that is what happens when you really go full on with neoliberalism and the state is reduced to the minimum expression and everything is in the hands of some capitalist. People will eventually revolt. It doesn't work. That's
Let's
not
remember,
democracy.
let's remember as well the amount of money that a lot of the oligarchy from around the world pump into these countries, and especially because they feel so threatened now with what's going on in the rest of Latin America. We have obviously Venezuela, we have Bolivia, we have countries that are starting Colombia. So these people are scared. So the more scared they are, the more they're going to pump money into these campaigns against these sort of things. Yeah.
And America, what role is America
You
playing?
mean the United States?
Yes.
Yeah, that's not America. We are
It always does.
That's
That's the first thing I heard.
So what role is the USA
I
playing in
don't-
pumping money into neoliberalism?
No, I think that
Yeah,
there's
the
a sit back
CIA
and
is
watching.
always, the CIA always has the day.
They have their own
always.
ways.
Yeah, they're certainly watching, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Certainly, and very attentively watching what's going on.
Yeah.
But only watching, I would
Um,
imagine they are in the pockets of the
They have
5%
dialogues,
of people.
negotiations. There are CIA agents always
Everywhere.
there, and they do liaise with politicians.
Maybe they're helping with their social media campaign, giving them advice.
It's always been like that since the 1970s.
Anyway, it's a lot to analyse, and I think it's really interesting. And also the self-criticism, as Robert says, is really important. I've been working in prisons for the last 20 years, and I think the thing that most struck me was that I was so excited because for the first time, they were allowing prisoners to vote. Not all prisoners, because from the 1980 Constitution, like about 10% of prisoners are allowed to vote, because you can't, if you commit a crime that's with a sentence over 3 years and 1 day, which is like 90% of prisoners, you can't vote according to the 1980 Constitution. You lose your citizenship, you lose your right to vote. But there's still 10% who could vote, and the Electoral Service never ever set up the voting booths in the prisons. There was all this sort of thing, oh, they had military in prisoners, oh, they had the guard. Anyway, they always had an excuse. They were even taken to court about it, and this time they actually set up the voting booths. And the reject one. There were about 15 prisons, and 14 of them, the reject vote won. So there's a lot of education needed there. These are the people who are going to really gain a lot from the Constitution.
Something that I'm not sure about, and I haven't read anything, is how legal was the counting? Were they really good people observing? That was really good. No, no, nothing there. Everything was. No questions about that.
I think there are a lot of observers.
Okay.
We would like to think.
Yeah, maybe.
Anecdotal evidence says that it's actually quite. They've got a pretty good system in that sense of you can go into the voting area, the voting centre, and be there while they're counting, and they count it. I'm like, breve,
Okay.
rechazo,
Okay.
breve. And you go, oh, wait just a minute. No, it's really, I've never seen that here, but it's very clear.
I think it is very early as well in this government, and I think I never lose hope. I think we have to, as I've said before, there's only a certain amount of grief that the people can withstand.
Yeah.
And that's the process. That's the movement, the social movement process. So I really hope that from today and from this discussion as well, we don't deflate too much, that we go forward, that we keep going forward, because there is no other way. There are people that did vote, so we have to be there for those people who did vote. We have to be in solidarity with them, and to to be with them, and to explain to them, or to be with them, working with them, showing them our solidarity, that we can keep going forward. Because I have seen a lot, I know that even for us who are not from Chile, we were very, very devastated, and it wasn't surprising, but we were quite devastated, and the amount of disappointing comments that I have seen and heard from people from Chile who have been long time strugglers in this movement, you think, ooh, okay, we need to keep going. We need to keep
We'll
going.
take a week off to be depressed.
That's right.
And
So-
now, after a week, people are already starting to talk about, oh,
That's
what's the
right.
next thing?
That's right. So,
Chile is an old democracy compared to Australia. Australia is not really a democracy until 1968 when they do the referendum, because before Aboriginal people were not counted and couldn't vote. So that was no democracy.
it's not a democracy.
Yeah.
Are we a
Need a
democracy?
whole afternoon for that.
So, look, this is a very interesting topic of discussion, and I think that's why if you want to stay later after we finish the program, go downstairs, have something to eat, discuss, don't fight, okay? No punches,
Oh my God.
unless it gets very exciting, but that's okay. So we're going to continue with the program. Thank you very much, Penny. And I'm sure this is not going to be the first or the last time that we are going to utilize Penny's knowledge in many of the areas that she has worked in Chile. We have had a bit of a change in program. We were going to have Música Rebelde next, but we are going to have jumping fences instead. And it's all Rose's fault. Where's Rose? Rose has to leave soon, so I'm going to introduce Jumping Fences. So, Jumping Fences is an enduring musical partnership between Sue Monk and Lachlan Hess. Their original works contain imagery and styles that reveal both an incisive insight into the Australian life and a long association with Latin American culture. Jumping Fences are regularly accompanied by Rose Weaver, who does tenor saxophone and clarinet, as well as many other players, percussionists. Today they're going to be joined by Oscar, and I believe Ovidio as well. Sue and Lachlan have been long-time activists in union, peace, and solidarity movements. Their outstanding work and solidarity towards Latin America cannot go without being mentioned, especially for their enormous work and time that they dedicate to the Australian-Cuba Friendship Society. Their solidarity has no limits. Where solidarity is needed, Jumping Fences will be there. From singing to the working class in abattoirs, to the picket lines of union actions, to solidarity events in Australia and Cuba, where they are much loved and respected. So please welcome Jumping Fences.
Thank you, Manoli. We just need a minute just to plug in and turn on and make sure our batteries are charged. Thanks.
In the meantime, if you want to go and get a drink, or you need to go to the toilet,
I think Ovidio, are you going to join us for this song, please? Yeah. Now's as good as ever. Thank you, Manoli. Where are you? Thank you for that introduction. It's a pleasure to play here today. We're pleased to participate in this event. And yeah, maybe this side. You can see the words just in case.
So I'm thinking of Chile and its extraordinary geography, with this great big long country with a mountain range on one side, desert in the north, a polar ice cap in the south and this great big extraordinary coastline, and in some ways a very defining element of our understanding of Chile, not just the human struggles that have taken place there, but this extraordinary country geographically. And the first one we're going to do is a song which, well, if you're thinking of the coastline, think of Pablo Neruda's and house in Casa de la Isla Negra, his house overlooking the ocean, and the and this imagery of the sea, which is very strong in a lot of Neruda's poetry. Anyway, this is a long way of talking about the next song, which is called Soledad y el Mar, which is not a Chilean song, but a Mexican song, but evokes the imagery of the sea and saying goodbye to someone who's no longer there. So today we can dedicate it to all those people, Chilean martyrs, who are no longer with us, and we can think of Neruda, Victor Jara, and Salvador Allende.
I should have put glasses on.
Supe que estabas tú.
So, thinking about the connections between Chile and Australia, and during the Allende government, the United States intelligence services and the CIA were under intense observation from the Chilean left, as they should have been. So Australian governments put up their hand and said, don't worry, we'll help out. And the Australian ACES served a critical role in the bringing down the Allende government, which is to our eternal shame. But anyway, part of this involves all high-level technology and satellites and communications. And of course, since then, technology has expanded. Satellites, mobile phones, internet. It occupies a very big part of our lives. And anyway, this next song is a song just about that. It's called Satellites.
Seven sisters gather in a dark red sky. I see queens in their celestial home. Orion in pursuit sprawled across the night. Under this ancient starry dome, satellites shine bright overhead. Nameless intruders of the night. Everything in motion, turning on a pin.
Chile, there was this enormous diaspora around the whole globe, and it was probably a very bitter thing to be forced to leave your homeland. For Sue and me and many other people in the Solidarity movement, though, it was a great pleasure to meet Chileans coming here to Australia. It enriched our lives enormously and enabled us to give expressions to solidarity that we felt. And the next song is a Cuban song that explores this idea of the diaspora and people looking for a peaceful life. It's called A Shade.
Video, I'm not sure if you'd like to join us for this, but even from the back you can leave the ashe, ashe, ashe. I'll leave it to you. All right, good.